Okay, good morning, guys. We're going to talk today about how to solve weighted averages. And there's going to be a couple different types of weighted averages we're going to look at. The first is going to be a straight weighted average. And then perhaps in the next video, it's going to be weighted average mixture problems. So go ahead and go to your TOC. And TOC, we're going to want to put down weighted average dash weighted average, and that's going to be on page 40 in your, I'm on 40 in my notebook. You may be a little bit different depending on how big you write. So I'll give you about 20 seconds or so to write that down before we move over to that page. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to page 40. So weighted average weighted average. Which, by the way, we use this method to actually calculate your grades, because if you remember in the beginning of the year, you were probably told in all of your classes that your summative assignments, like tests and quizzes, are 70% of your grade. And formative assessments, that could be class assignments, homework, projects, participation is 25% of your grade. And then participation is actually 5% of your grade. Okay, so we use the weighted average method. It's done, on a computer, thankfully, probably for most teachers, but this would be a way that you can do it actually on your own if you were so interested in calculating your grade by hand. So let's start out with, what is a weighted average? And a weighted average is a weighted average is used when compiling a percentage of total value when combining multiple data sets that do not have equal shares in the whole. So as we just discussed about your grades, you only get one grade in mathematics on your report card. So within that grade, summatives, 70%, that's a greater percentage of the whole than, say, formatives that are only worth 25%. So we can't just take all the points and add them together, because that wouldn't be fair. Formatives have to be weighted heavier. Summatives have to be weighted heavier than formatives. And participation is weighted the least, because it's only 5% of your grade. Okay, so how do we calculate that? How do we go about calculating that? So here are the steps that we're going to use to help us take care of that. We're going to leave a couple lines here so that we could write our example problem up above, because of course it's a word problem. So step 1, take a mean or average of each of, we'll take a mean of each data set. Step 2, multiply each data set, we say each data set's mean by its weighted percentage. I'm going to put in parentheses after this decimal. Because we can't multiply by a percentage, we have to convert that percentage to a decimal and use the decimal in the actual computation. And add the products together. Step 3, multiply the sum from step 2 by 100 to get the final percentage of the whole. Round to hundredths. Place, round to hundredths place if needed. And after that, we will have our answer. So I'll give you a good 30 seconds to make sure you have it all down. Then we'll go over our example. Okay, so example question. Jim earned 38 out of 50 and 25 out of 30 on 2 tests. He earned 11 out of 12, 8 out of 12, and 10 out of 12 on quizzes. And turned in all of his homework worth 200 points. If tests are weighted %, quizzes are 25%, and homework is 25%. What is Jim's current grade. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is I need to recognize that I have three different types of data sets here. I have tests, quizzes, and I have homework. Next, I want to know kind of like what would be his grade in just each one of those data sets. And that's what we mean by we say take the mean or the average of each data set. Now, they could have given me what he's gotten in each one of those data sets, but instead they gave me his actual scores. So I'm going to need to figure out the mean for each. So how do we do that? We add up the total points earned. So for test, he earned 38 and 25. And that is divided by out of how many total points were available on those tests. And that was 50 plus 30. So this is going to be my mean for test. And then for quizzes, he got an 11, an 8, and a 10. And all of them were 12, and there were 3 of them. So this is going to be the mean or the average for quizzes. And lastly, he got 200 out of 200 points on the homework. So when we divide these, we should wind up with 0.7875. If we made, this is what it looks like as a decimal. If we changed it back to a percentage, we'd move it 2 spots over and it would be 78.75%. On quizzes, he got a 0.8055 or 80.55%. And here he got a 1 or a 100%. Right, so we want the decimal versions here, not the percentages. Now we need to multiply each one of them by their percentage decimal. So we know that tests are worth 50%. So we can't put 50%. 50% as a decimal is 0.50. And I'm going to multiply that by the 0.7875. And they want me to add these products together as well. So I'm going to write that out. So this is for test. For quiz, I would have 0.25 because it's only 25% weight times 0.8055. And lastly, for homeworks, I'm going to have 0.25 times 1 because he earned 100%. And when I put that all together, I'm going to get 0.845125. Now, you might think to yourself, well, Miss Egan, that's way more than the hundredths place. When we talk about rounding at the end, we want to wait till the end as much as possible to round. Up here, the only time we'd want to round is if we have like a never-ending decimal. And in that case, I'd probably round to the thousandths place so that in my final answer, I can round to the hundredths if necessary. Here, they asked me to multiply this by 100. So 845125 times 100. Remember, when you're multiplying by something that's a multiple of 10, if you just count the zeros, that's how many spots you need to move your decimal. This is 100, so I need to move this decimal 2 spots, and it would be 84.5125. And I'm going to round to the 100th spot, which is second spot. 5 is going to push the 2 to a 3. 3 does not push this up, so my final answer is 84.51. 84.51%. So with these grades, currently Jim's grade is an 84.51%. Okay, and that is how you do a weighted average. And there's a couple problems on your GP number 21 that you need to complete to make sure you know how to do it.